what you are about to see is the contribution from the blood, the sweat, and the tears, and even people who died to help make this country the great country that it is, because we kept America great.
The United States of America, considered the world's leading economic power, on the cutting edge of technology and innovation, service and quality of life for its citizens is at the highest level. How did America get to the point to be the world economic leader it is today? How did America the Beautiful become the country of choice for so many immigrants, where they flocked from around the globe for over 2 centuries, coming to seek a better life, a better way, seeking the opportunities to live the American dream, bringing their families and cultures in unique ways that made us all American? How did we get to this point?
The great thing about today and what's happening in our country right now is that people are finally talking about our past. We're finally admitting that we have a lot of bruises, that we made a lot of mistakes. And that's what makes our country great, is that we can talk about these mistakes, talk about them together, and the fact that we can and that we're facing that and we're doing something about it, that's what I think makes us great.
We strongly encourage you to take what you've learned from this documentary and apply it and show the love and spread that around the world.
It's important to remember all of these contributions that have made life better for all of us. Each one of us in this nation benefits from the contributions of African Americans, of Latina Americans, of Native Americans, of Caucasian Americans, of Americans who are immigrants and have come to this country. As we take this moment to appreciate the contributions of these amazing African Americans, it's also important that we recognize we all made America great. Historically, the ties between slavery and capitalism in the United States haven't always been clearly understood. However, recent scholarly works are helping to set the record straight by exploring the true ties between the 19th century economic development and the brutal system of slavery in the United States. In 2016, Slavery's Capitalism, A New History of America's Economic Development, began to explore this very issue.
At the beginning of the Civil War, the Vice President of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, gave a speech called the Cornerstone Speech, in which he said, our government is the first in the world, history of the world, to be based essentially on Negro slavery. The number of the wealth, created slave-related wealth, is one of the primary sources of wealth in this country, if not the primary source. It's whether it's education or finance or agriculture or business or railroads, or mining. We were there in one way or another. And when somebody might just say, we made America great, there's more than enough evidence of that.
We're standing in front of the U.S. Capitol. Construction began September 18, 1793. Slaves built this great monument, and not just this monument, but others as well, and through the help of others to build this great nation.
What makes America great is the desire to be greater than it is now, to understand that it hasn't been as great as it should be. So when I look at the moral arc of the universe of American democracy, Black people have bent it toward justice.
Slavery was the cornerstone of the colonization of the Americas. Of the 10 million people who crossed the Atlantic before 1800, approximately 8.5 million were enslaved Americans. By the time the transatlantic trade was finally suppressed in the 1860s, a total of 10 million Africans had been carried into New World slavery.
The uncompensated labor of enslaved people is essential to its growth, essential to its development, essential to the rise of the United States as an independent world power.
The slave labor, the different ways that we contribute to this country, we help make this country to where it is right now.
In 1831, the United States produced approximately 350 million pounds of cotton, just under half of the planet's raw cotton crop. The bulk of that crop was shipped abroad, and cotton exports worth just under $30 million accounted for 35% of the value of all goods exported from the United States. By 1835, the cotton crop had increased to more than 500 million pounds, roughly 70% of it grown in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Georgia. Cotton exports, now worth nearly $65 million, amounted to more than half the value of all goods America sent overseas. This industry was undergirded by the enslaved labor of Africans who had been transported in earlier decades in the transatlantic slave trade.
Standing behind me is the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial, dedicated August the 28th, 2011. This great monument of a man, a civil rights leader, delivered a powerful speech, "I Have a Dream," in 1963 on the Lincoln Memorial steps. Now, as he overlooks the tidal basin, another great powerful monument, Thomas Jefferson Memorial, he looks and perhaps thinking that every man should be able to have the rights to take advantage of the Constitution of the United States of America.
It's really inspiring to know that how our ancestors survived all the hatred, slavery, and all the segregation and stuff. We've survived a real long war.
The white population of Mississippi grew fast in the 1830s, but the black population grew even faster. Just over 65,000 in 1830, by 1836, the number of enslaved people had jumped to more than 164,000, an increase of roughly 250%. By 1840, the enslaved population sat at nearly 200,000, approximately 52% of the population in the state, and triple what it had been 10 years earlier. Every white man intending to become a cotton planter in Mississippi aimed to own slaves. The more slaves a man owned, the more land he could cultivate and the more cotton he could bring to market. It is no secret that slave labor made everything at the times possible. It might seem that white Mississippians actually insulated themselves against financial failure by so boldly expanding slavery. Enslaved people grew cotton that would make slave owners wealthy, and as relatively liquid assets, slaves could also be converted into cash.
There's a slave owner who buys a college in North Carolina. It's called Trinity. We know it today as Duke University. One branch of the Duke family is going to get into mills, and that will become Duke Nuclear, Duke Energy. So money parlayed from the uncompensated labor of our ancestors has rippled through this economy from the age of rivers and mills all the way down to nuclear power plants. So this is just an example. This is why we have to be fierce in our knowledge of history, fierce in our teaching of history, because they're not teaching our contributions to this society.
The Consolidated Association and other property banks readily lent money to stockholders who mortgaged their real and personal property, including slaves. Property banks were part of an astonishing expansion of credit that helped to buy thousands of enslaved people, hundreds of plantations, and improvements in technology that would undergird Louisiana's growing sugar crop. Louisiana's 1820 sugarcane crop was valued at $2 million and its cotton crop at $7 million. By 1829, the sugar crop was worth more than $6 million, while cotton crops had sank to $2 million. The demand by cotton textile manufacturing in Europe and New York's financial and commercial dealings. Mississippi's social and economic history in its early statehood were driven by cotton and slave labor, and the two became intertwined in America. Cotton was a labor-intensive business, and the large number of workers required to grow and harvest cotton came from slave labor. Because of the cotton boom, there were more millionaires per capita in the Mississippi River Valley by 1860 than anywhere else in the United States.
As you can see, we all have kept America great. And as far as the response that I'm getting, I'm just intrigued by, as far as the love, the unity that people have within them and the changes that they're suggesting to make. When I ask that question about, do you love America? Do you think America is great? Everybody feels that America is great, but they also feel the changes can be made to tear down the barriers, as far as like racism, and as far as the rhetoric that's happening right now, that's slowing down the progress as far as we coming together as one. And that's what this series is about. We kept America great, and that's our intent.
In the world we live in today, the fact that a black man can go to college and graduate and be successful, and he is an entrepreneur, is something that I'm sure that my ancestors would never have thought would have ever happened. And then you have a female who's still striving for higher education and doing what she needs to do to better herself. It's just absolutely makes my heart feel good.
Yesterday she asked me if I wanted to be president, and no one has ever asked me that before. That feeling in America is awesome.
Of course we love America. America is by far the greatest country in the world. But we always have to remember and work hard to make America the land of opportunity for everyone. People of all colors, all nations, all backgrounds. This is the place where any boy, girl, woman, or man should be able to fulfill their dream.
We have to understand that the United States is a cultural pluralistic society. Like Du Bois stated, that we can be black and we can still be an American. You can be Latino and still be an American. You can be Asian and still be American. You do not have to give up one to take on the other. We're the only country in the world that we come together not by race, not by ethnicity, not by religion, not by culture, but we come together because of what is stated in the first 10 amendments of our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And we come together because of the 14th Amendment that states that all the laws in the Constitution is guaranteed to all citizens and visitors in this country.
There is no great thing that has happened in this country in terms of building this country and making it the great country that it has always been that African Americans have not been a part of.
I just want to say, we're all in this together. It's that life is not a race. We're all here to do the same thing, but more.
Don't act like you don't know. It's right in your face and about to explode, because love is the answer to heal the world of this mind cancer.